Evening, everybody. My name is Laura Sawicki. I'm the Superintendent of Education for Area 2 schools. And today we are here to have a discussion in regard to the continuing education program at St. Julia Billiart. And we begin with our prayer. I'm just going to make it a little bit larger for me. Sorry. Sorry, I just can't read that. I'm just going to make it a little bit larger. Okay, I'm going to bring it closer to me. We join together in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Dear Jesus, incarnate of divine wisdom, we thank you for those who are gathered here today, people who are part of our lives and who share our mission. Unite us, your people, as we strive to bring the good news of your love to our schools. Bring to each of us your peace and your love, your vision for the children we serve. In our lives, we need your presence. We need your hope, your spirit of unity, your conviction for our future. Amen. And in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Your Catholic land acknowledgement. We are gathered on the ancestral lands and waters of all Indigenous peoples who have left their footprints on Mother Earth before us. We respectfully acknowledge those who walked on it, those who walk on it now, and future generations who've yet to walk upon it. We pray to the Creator for strength and wisdom that all may continue to serve as stewards of the earth. And we welcome today Trustee Frank Alexander.
Hello, everyone.
Principal Beverly Coles at St. Julia. Coordinating Manager of Planning and Operation, Tom Pichowski. ESL Program Manager, Tanya Connell.
Good evening, everyone.
Manager Planning Services, Joachim Tse. And Planner and Project Analyst, Karen McAlpine-Tran.
Great, thank you, Laura. So in terms of this public information session meeting format, I just want to quickly go over that we are proceeding right now with this meeting virtually. At the end of the presentation, there will be an opportunity to ask questions, and that form is actually open right now. So while you're watching on the YouTube link, there's a link in the comments section for what you're watching where you can click and ask a question during the public information session. As I mentioned, the link is open now and you can enter questions at any point. Board staff in attendance will answer as many questions as we can in the time available here this evening. And following the meeting, the presentation will be posted to the board's website. A feedback form will also be available for you to provide any additional feedback. And that link for feedback after won't be available until after this meeting. And feedback will also be accepted until the end of the day on March the 14th through that link. So feel free to provide that in the meanwhile. Next slide, please. And I'll just quickly go through this, if that's okay with you, Laura. So just on the agenda for today, we just, Laura did the welcome and we want to also do the context and community partners in schools, the continuing education, giving an overview of the program, as well as the current example that we have at St. Paul Catholic Elementary School in Newmarket. And then we'll talk about the St. Julia Billiart example that we are here to discuss today. And then we'll talk about next steps as well as questions that you may have. Next slide, please. And I'll pass that over to Tom Pichowski.
Thank you, Joachim. So you may be asking why we're here today. So I guess we're really here to talk about a possible facility partnership for St. Julia. This kind of dates back to our long-term plan, which identified some accommodation principles, one of optimizing facilities. And in 2010, the provincial government also introduced a facility partnership requirement for boards, and we've had a policy since then and entertained a number of partnerships at some of our operating schools, as well as predating that, we had a number of multi-use facilities and whatnot. So this is not necessarily new. What's new here is that we're bringing it into an elementary school that's previously functioned as a full elementary school, and now we're looking at augmenting that with some continuing ed classes using part of the school. So we are certainly aware of some of the concerns that you may have about the program, and we're here today to kind of share our knowledge of the program, what the facility will look like, and opportunities for your feedback, and to ensure that we've kind of picked up on any concerns that you may have. So with that, I do just want to say the Board of Trustees kind of reviewed this initiative that we proposed in our long-term plan last December, and we basically brought 3 school sites forward for consideration of this, and we were asked by the trustees to come out and consult with you before a final decision. So it is kind of our intent to go along this route, but obviously we want to make sure we've captured all the concerns, or if there's something new that we haven't identified in the past, then we'd like to kind of consider that in our decision. So sorry, I think I went a little longer than usual, Joachim, but I'll pass it back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tom, and no apologies needed, because I think that was a nice clarification. So in terms of partnerships in school, we believe that sharing facilities can be beneficial for the community as well as our students. The expansion of that partnership at a board level is an implementation, as Tom mentioned, of the Community Planning and Partnerships program from the Ministry of Education. That's really intended to assist boards in establishing more facility partnerships and to support effective planning with community partners. We are seeing declining enrollment overall at our board, and so we are exploring partnerships to create more vibrant community facilities with the hope of also increasing enrollment in the process. Accommodating partners is an opportunity for the school and the community to create a more vibrant school community type link, and we can further enhance a positive image or attributes for our Catholic board to those attending these programs as well as those in our community. This enhances the accessibility of the service to some of our parents, guardians, families, and friends of existing students as well. And continuing education is also our own program from YCDSB and a partner from within our own board who we are very familiar with and can easily work with. And with that, I would like to pass the next few slides on to Tanya, where she'll give you an overview of the program, as well as to provide you with an example from St. Paul Catholic Elementary School. Tanya, thank you.
Thank you, Joachim. Yes, so this is part of the Continuing Education Department, and we have a variety of adult educational programs that serves the entire York Region community. We provide general interest programs, adult computers, instructor certificate programs, adult ESL, and our programs are offered in the day, evening, and on Saturdays. Next slide, please. Within the Adult and Continuing Education Department, we have a large program, which is the Adult ESL Language Training Program. It's been operating through the Continuing Education Department for over 30 years, quite successfully, and it provides an opportunity for adult learners to learn and develop their English as a second language skills. Our programs are offered throughout York Region during the day, in the evenings, and on Saturdays, and these schedules depend on the location and the need in that particular community. We have learning opportunities for school and community members, which creates a nice, vibrant community and school link for our school communities. We only hire certified and screened YCDSB teachers, those who will be delivering the course content, and the monitoring of these programs is done by the manager as well as some consultants. So currently we do have a program, an adult ESL program that is being housed at St. Paul Catholic Elementary School in Newmarket. And we have two classes operating there, one in the morning during the day and one in the afternoon. And these courses are really separated from the rest of the school community. We have a separate entrance for the classrooms. We have an alarm on the interior classroom door, which is connected to the school. But, if someone tries to open that particular door, the alarm goes off. So everybody is well aware that it's been tampered with. And I just want to say that has actually not been an incident that has happened. We also try to stagger the start and the end times so that they do not coincide with the school hours to minimize any interactions between our classes. As I said, we have two classes operating, one in the AM, one in the PM, and approximately 15 to 25 students attend daily for each of those classes. We have separate washrooms, so we're not using any school facilities other than our own area, and that's really important for us to acknowledge. We also provide ID badges for both staff and students so that we are easily identified. And only our staff, meaning only our ESL instructors, board staff, can enter the school or the office area. And from I guess this is a little map of the school currently at St. Paul. You can clearly see the division of the classes. The little circle is the entrance point for the two classrooms. So it's quite divided from the rest of the school. The students access that main entrance and go directly into the two classrooms that are there on the left.
Great. Thank you, Tanya, for providing that example. So I think now we're moving on to the St. Julia Billiart example with this particular slide. And if we can go to the next slide, please. Now, with the St. Julia Billiart School here, we are looking at proposing to utilize two kindergarten classrooms on at the side of the building near the parking lot area that's facing the parking lot area. And this is a floor plan that just shows where those two classrooms are. They're across from the gym and next to a hallway corridor and also close to the main office as well. If you can go to the next slide, please. This is just a zoomed in picture of the area that we were speaking about so that you can see it more clearly. And these two designated spaces, you can see that they have their own separate entrance and exit. There are individual washrooms inside of each of these washrooms so that they are separated. And there are, and they are, as I mentioned, across from the gym and next to a stairwell as well. So if you can move to the next slide. This is an aerial image to show where it is relative to the rest of the school that parents might be more familiar with in terms of the location of these two particular rooms. So they do face the parking lot, as I mentioned. They're on the sort of the east side of the school here, and they are located sort of within that area as well. So next slide, please. So in terms of the plan here, the proposal, we are proposing to operate it separate from the rest of the school, similar to the St. Paul example, where we would have the doors that are alarmed or locked between the main classroom as well as the school and school hallway. It has that separate entrance or exit at the side of the school that you saw in the diagrams before you. We are proposing for the program hours to be staggered as well to avoid school start and end times, to facilitate not only regular movement for pickup and drop off, but to also minimize any sort of potential contact outside of the school. There, as I mentioned, there would be alarms or locks installed on the doors that open to the inside of the hallway of the school. So if something happens there, then the alarms would go off or something to that effect. The separate or dedicated washroom, as I mentioned, is already in the areas as identified. There would need to have a security guard to enter the school security card, to enter the school facility. The parking for school and staff and parents would be maintained the way that they are. the program itself would also be trained in the evacuation procedures and drills of the school so that they follow the same process and procedures. And of course, because it's our own program as well, we would have the obligation to follow our own board policies as well as the school's routines in this particular case. And as Tanya mentioned a little bit earlier, what we would be doing is we would also be continuously monitoring the programs and make any improvements that we might need to do in terms of in necessary. And Karen, if you wouldn't mind going back to the previous slide as well with the aerial. Perfect, thank you. Now, as part of the improvements as well that we didn't mention is one of the things that we would be looking at is to put a fence up in the kindergarten pen area between the entrance and exit all the way out to the fence that's closest to the parking lot to separate the entire kindergarten pen from the entrance or exit so that they're not utilizing the same outdoor kindergarten pen area as our kindergarten students. And so that access would be blocked off, and the access to these two kindergarten classrooms to be used for this program would be separated and would be distinctly used this way. And so I wanted to make that point distinct and clear. Karen, would you mind just kind of using your mouse to move across there again just to show? So right next to the doors, we would just put a chain link fence there to separate the entrances and exits. If you can go back to the next 2 slides, please. Now, I just wanted to touch upon this before we get to the questions. So in terms of next steps, as Tom mentioned, your feedback is important, and what we're really specifically looking for are any aspects of this partnership that we might not have addressed in terms of what we spoke about, or things that are unique to the St. Julia Billiart community that we might not be aware of as well. We will review and discuss your feedback, and your feedback will be included in the staff report, ultimately for the board's decision of moving forward or not moving forward. And as well, just, should everything go well, the earliest possible date for implementation is September of 2022. We don't envision there won't be any earlier implementation than that, because we do need to take the time to identify all the different things that we need to identify, including through this COVID period, potential materials that we might need, for example, doors or fencing, etc. Those types of things need to be done. And any improvements that we will make that we spoke about, hopefully we'll target them for doing them in July and August when there's no disruption to the school or the school community. And so with that, I'll pause there and be happy to take any questions that you might have. And Laura, I understand that you are going to be moderating some of those questions that will be coming in. So feel free to submit your questions, comments, and we'll do our best to answer as many as possible. So thank you.
Thanks, Joachim, and thank you for the presentation. And I guess I can actually say that previous to Principal Coles, I was the principal at St. Julia Billiart, and I just would like to say it's a vibrant learning community, as some of you have mentioned in the comment section regarding the centers that you're having and the inclusivity that are there. And I understand your concerns, but again, it's sustainability in that St. Julia community that we really want to ensure is going to happen. So I'm going to go to the questions here and turn it over to the group. So the first question would be, and I turn it over, how and when will adults be accessing the building, and how do you propose to keep students safe?
Thank you, Laura. So that's a very good first question. I think what I would mention first and foremost that's really important to mention is the fact that there will be no interaction between the adult learners as well as students inside of the school whatsoever, because they're completely in a separated space. There is no sharing of hallways or washrooms or classrooms or anything along those lines, or even entrances or exits, because we're proposing to separate them all completely. So that's first and foremost. In terms of the timing, I think Tanya might be able to provide some additional input on this, but I think just using the St. Paul example as well, what we can do is stagger the start and end times of each of the programs where there's enough of a buffer, such as, for example, half an hour, where students are already inside their classrooms in the morning, well into their classrooms, and that's when the program for the adult ESL program might be starting, as an example. And that way, when they enter their separate entrance, there is no interaction outside either with anybody, from the school community. And in terms of trying to keep everybody safe, I think we've identified that we will be separating everything. And so I think that partially explains the second part of your question. Tanya, do you have anything further to add as it relates to sort of some of the timing that we might consider?
Yes, I just wanted to add that the program would be held Monday to Friday in the morning or in the afternoon, or both morning and afternoon, depending on what meets the hours and the schedule of the school. So we would be able to accommodate.
Thank you. I guess the next question is in regard to just basically smoking. Where will smoking be allowed on the sidewalks, or where, if they need to take a smoke break, the adults?
So I can start with that, and Tanya, maybe you can help supplement that as well. So as everybody may know, that smoking is not allowed on school property, and it's not allowed on the sidewalks that is adjoining with the school property as well. And so any type of smoking, I guess, in this particular case, would be significantly, far removed from the school site. Tanya, I don't know if you have experience with this. So it comes significantly off of our property as well as off of the sidewalk surrounding our school. So Tanya, I don't know if you have any
Yes.
further pieces to add.
Yes, at St. Paul, we actually have our students. So I just want to reiterate that these are rules that we reinforce, we introduce, we reinforce, and we continuously monitor with the students. And usually the students, according to St. Paul location, we go across the street if they have to. It's nowhere near the school area.
Thank you. So we have a few questions here. Are these adults who have access to the school required to have a criminal check?
Tanya, do you want to start or do you want me to start?
You can start.
Sure. So these adults, so the adult learners in our particular program would not be subject to that check. However, what I would note is because the adult ESL teachers are our own board staff, they would have that vulnerable sector check and have that check as well. So I don't know if you want to supplement that, Tanya.
No, I think that's pretty clear. Our students would not be subjected to the criminal record check.
And I'll just simply explain the difference or the reason for that. Sorry, Laura, is the fact that there is no interaction and it's in a separated part of the building. And so they are, unlike other adults, for example, who might be, lunchtime supervisors or who might be volunteers on a class trip, etc. They are not supervising or interacting with our children in any way, shape, or form. And Tom, if you would like to supplement that as well.
Yeah, I was just simply going to add that this is no different than some of our other facilities where we've had shared space in the facility where other users are coming in and out of the school. And I think there's always an underlying concern about, the younger students, elementary students, but these adult learners are really coming into the space. They're supervised by their teacher while they're there, and then they're leaving. They're not really hanging around or anything like that. They have other things to do. So, as I said, it's no different than some of our joint facilities where we have the public coming in and out. We don't have criminal record check for them either. So.
Thank you. I'm going to tie in number 2 and 3 together here in regard to how are the St. Julie students benefiting from having an ESL center during the day, because number 3 is saying they already have the 2 centers at the school. Why is this even being considered?
Well, maybe I'll just try and tackle that one. I guess, from an individual student perspective, there may not be a direct benefit, but I guess from a board perspective, there's a benefit, and anything we can do to make the board more efficient and economic in how it operates, there's obviously a contribution back into the classroom in terms of resources, financial resources. So I guess that's kind of my take on it as a planning operations kind of person, that we need to look at the board, all their assets that we have, and any money we can keep in the classroom is good money to have in the classroom. I don't know if anyone else has.
I'll just add one more thing that in terms of, and Tanya, you can speak to this as well. In the past, we have seen, for example, some of our, students, parents, guardians, grandparents, aunts and uncles, family and relatives or friends who do attend these adult learning programs as well. And so for some of them, there's the convenience of dropping off their kids or their, grandkids, etc., at school, and then kind of utilizing that same facility in a different entrance to access this program. And so there's some benefit there in terms of that aspect. And, you know, for those who might not be Catholic and taking this program, it might just introduce them to our, great and excellent sort of facilities that we have, and, might potentially, hopefully, have them consider, taking their kids to St. Julia Billiart or other schools such as that and enrolling them there. So that's part of that. Tanya, I don't know if you want to add anything else.
Yes, I just wanted to add that at our St. Paul location, we had many parents inquire about Catholic education at the school. So it was very nice to see that a new community was being formed and integrated into the location.
Thank you. I see questions continuing to be populated, and I'm trying to group them together. And I think you've addressed this piece about it being, a separate entrance, because they're concerned about the fact that, adults are having to buzz into the school, but yet we're allowing access to the school without being buzzed in. Why is the board even considering this?
Sure, I'll start again, and anybody else can sort of chime in. So, in terms of the under the normal considerations, as I mentioned, because this program in this section of the school will be fully separated and isolated, they do not have access to the rest of the school once they get into this um, specific kindergarten sort of space entrance. So I think that's the most important aspect. They don't have any access to students once they get into the space. So it's really somewhat similar to operating in its own sort of world, because the washroom access is there as well, and there is no interaction inside with kids. I don't know if anybody else might want to add to that as well.
No, I agree. Thank you, Jokum. It's also saying they also visit the kindergarten yard, and the students will be playing outside of those windows. And no, I did do a site visit, and again, I was principal of that school, and I did walk around with Principal Coles, and they have no vision directly there. If you look at the map, they are separated, and they have no access to see those kindergarten students, and they have no access to that yard. Yes, parking is a consideration. Perhaps you might want to address the parking.
Sure, I'll start, and Tanya, you can also supplement. So in general, with the parking scenario, what I did mention earlier on is the fact that with the adult continuing education program, we know that a significant percentage of them do take public transit, and those of you in the community will know that there is a frequent transit just in front of the school on Baroque as well. There's also more frequent transit as well that's accessible from Markham Road, as an example. And so, because a significant percentage of the population of this program is expected to take transit, that if you have 20 people in this program, we're not expecting 20 cars, which is some of your prototypical example in other programs. Now, in terms of the parking and the spaces, I think there's two other things to speak to that. There are 71 parking spaces at St. Julia Billiart. And these parking spaces are, for the most part, during the day. They're not all being utilized at all because the school is currently not at its full capacity. And some of the parking facilities were sort of meant for the school to be at its full contingent capacity as well. And so there is extra parking available there. Of course, during pickup and drop off in the morning and in the afternoon, it does get busy. So we recognize that. That's really important to recognize. There are other locations surrounding this school where there is available street parking as well. So that's another consideration that we can have for this particular program. Tanya, I don't know if there's anything else that you might want to add to that as well.
Yes, I just wanted to mention at our St. Paul location, with the staggered entrance and exit times, We haven't had any issues with that, only because a lot of our students are either carpooling, or if they do parking, it's past the school start time or end time. So we really haven't encountered that.
Thank you. So we have again, it's site-based. The kindergarten area is also the current before and after school area. Will the before and after school care be moved to another area? How do we ensure safety as the before and after school hours are different from school hours?
Sure. I'll just quickly answer that. And I don't see the principal on here right now, but my understanding is that the before and after school care, those rooms would be moved to another location within the school. There are a number of different options within the school that can be used for different location for the before and after school care space. And so I will, I'll leave that for the principal to decide, what's the most optimal location. But in terms of just access as well, we will not also in addition, we will not have, the entrances or exits of the before and after school care, sharing the entrance or exit with this facility with the separated space either. So I think I just wanted to clarify that and point that out as well.
Absolutely, Jill, and I'll work with the school community in that regard. So the same thing with, I'm sorry, would adults be out with the students during the fire drills? Again, it's a fire drill plan, and they would definitely be separate from any students when we're doing fire drills. I guess the question is, why use an elementary school over a secondary school for this? And I guess you know what, you can actually address that in regard to, if you don't have this happen at St. Julia, what's the risk of closing, and why are we not looking at other schools?
So perhaps I can start maybe with the latter question, if that's okay.
Sure.
So we did look at a number of different criteria very objectively in terms of the needs of the program. We did provide that report to the board towards the end of last year in the fall of 2021. And in terms of looking at some of the objective criteria, we looked at the long-term, capacity of the school and the long-term projections of, enrollment at the school to make sure that we can sustain any sort of that from that aspect, that there is consistent space at the school that might be available. We looked at other factors such as, the locations of existing continuing education demand and external locations of continuing education where there's an existing demand for the services in the program. And in this vicinity, in the vicinity of St. Julia Billiart, we did have previous locations of the continuing education program. So we know the demand is here for the services and for ESL program. We also looked at, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, other factors like the access to public transit. And so, the access to public transit is basically right outside the main school or right on Baroque there. So there's great connectivity there, as well as great connectivity just a little bit over on our Markham Road there with connections as well. So those are various other factors that we had considered in terms of that. And as Tom mentioned earlier as well, the province did introduce this piece that we do have to look at how do we best utilize our resources, including our excess space in existing schools. And so, if we did look at, for example, a different location like a community center, or a retail plaza, etc., it also does not resolve the scenario where we do have to find other partnerships or be efficient with some of our spaces at our existing schools, including in this case St. Julia Billiart. So hopefully I've answered that second part of the question. The first part of the question I think relates to I believe it's why aren't we considering secondary schools, or are we considering secondary schools? And so looking at that aspect as well, I think these nearby schools that we have in this particular area that are secondary are very close to, if not at or over capacity. And so part of that is there is not that sufficient type of space available in the high schools in the surrounding community. We are looking at the surrounding community because of the demand for the service, the adult ESL program service. And so hopefully that answers that question as well. I don't know if anybody else has anything else to supplement.
Okay, thanks, Jokum. I'm just looking. And basically, the question is, if you don't have this happen at St. Julia, is it at risk of closing down? Is this plan already approved? Will it launch anyway? Can we stop this from happening?
Tom, do you want to start with that one?
Sure. So at the risk of closure, so people are probably aware that the provincial government currently has a moratorium on school closures. If there is a school closure, there's a fairly lengthy process that we go through, and we would involve a neighborhood of a collection of schools and look at the best facilities. So I would say no. If we don't put the program in this school, then it's not necessarily the school that'll close. But I guess what we're trying to do is look at the fact that we have available space in schools and try and be proactive to put other uses in those facilities so that we can limit the number of schools we're closing in our general communities. So this is an approach to look at things a little differently than we normally do.
I'll just add to that saying right now with this particular school at St. Julia Billiart, we have just over 60% utilization, meaning, we have, we are utilizing only about 60% of the space in the school at this particular point. And our long-term enrollment projections are suggesting that we are expecting to see a continuous decline in enrollment here. So we are looking for various opportunities to better utilize our spaces. And as well as mentioned a little bit earlier, I think what better partnership than our own programs in our own school board, where we can have a lot more control as well as flexibility in adapting to the needs of the school and accommodating all those needs that the school has to minimize any potential disruption to the school, compared to, say, an external partner who, where it might be a little bit more difficult for that to happen. And Tom, I saw you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight that point because I think it's really critical, Jokum, that we are looking at what are the best fits for the different facilities we have. So we have space in some of our high schools, not in the ones in the area, but we also have space in our CEC and other elementary schools. And we really see this program, because we have Tanya kind of managing it and it's our staff that are managing these people, we can have direct communication with them and monitor what's happening. We do have other partnerships where we have a lot less control, where we have either municipalities or other groups in there, and that communication chain is that much more kind of delayed. So we wouldn't be doing this if we thought there was any kind of risk to the students. We think we've taken the precautions that we need to take and put practices into place. We're certainly open to hearing any other, suggestions or concerns, but and that's part of what coming out tonight to explain what we want to do and give you that comfort level with it. So thank you.
Laura, I think you're on mute.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's because I was having a coughing fit. Okay, I'm going to go back to the questions. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Just looking, I think most of these have been addressed. Parking before and the before and after school hours question was not addressed. Would the staggering time overlap the before and after school care hours?
Okay, so I think what we can do, and maybe Tanya, you can add to that, is we can look at that and see what we can do to stagger those hours as well. I think there's opportunities to sort of look at the scheduling and the bell times and everything in between the school and some of the before and after school. And again, what we will do to make the community comfortable in this case is to sort of stagger and minimize any interactions as well with that particular program. And as mentioned, I think we had identified that we would, Laura, you had mentioned that you would work with the principal here and look at opportunities to, to move the before and after school care to a different part of the school. For example, I could potentially go on a different end of the school where, the entrances and exits are, perhaps on the opposite end or a different end where there won't even be any interactions on this end. But I don't want to presuppose anything in this particular scenario.
Yeah, and I am seeing, a few parents, and obviously they're concerned, and looking to pull their children from the school. And again, St. Julie is such a vibrant community, so I feel free to reach out to me, and we can have personal conversations, or with Principal Coles. Um, in regard. So again, let's have those conversations. Certainly reach out to me. My extension is 13123 at the York Catholic District School Board, and we can have those conversations. I'm just looking at anything that was not addressed. Is this meeting strictly informational, or are we seeking parent approval, and is there a vote?
So I can address that one. I think this is an opportunity to exchange information, to hear your concerns, and as Joachim said earlier in the meeting, if there's something you think we might have missed, or something unique to this community, we need to know. So we would appreciate any of that information sharing. This is not a vote. It's the board's obligation to efficiently use our resources that we have, and ultimately it'll be the board of trustees that'll make that decision based on a staff recommendation. So we haven't decided yet, in terms of, we think this is a good opportunity for the school and the board as well. We think we've done some due diligence in terms of ensuring safety. I'm a little concerned hearing that people might be kind of suggesting they might pull their children out of school. And I guess I'd appreciate understanding, what could be the concerns. A lot of these adult learners are also those people in your community, and it's a little disconcerting just to hear the kind of the concern that people may have. We recognize that bringing other people or other users into the facility is going to add some, complications, but we think we've taken care of a lot of those concerns through the security measures that Joachim and Tanya have highlighted, and just the on-site supervision of those people with the ESL teachers and even our own principal. So, but anyway, that's part of tonight's meeting, is to get that feedback and hear what you have to say. So.
Thanks, Tom. And absolutely, we've looked at all options. And I guess the question here is, a couple of years ago, it was mentioned that the board was looking at redoing school boundaries between St. Julia, St. Joseph, and St. Patrick, and St. Kateri, actually, to increase enrollment at to increase enrollment, or basically just to balance. Is this no longer happening, and therefore is the board looking at implementing this program as a result?
So maybe I can just address, because some of those are historical ideas that we've had in our long-term plan. And yes, there are some imbalances with some of the enrollments between the schools, particularly with St. Joseph and the former St. Joseph boundary, so Kateri and whatnot. I think what we're seeing big picture is there's decline across the board. So we're looking at programs that we can put into schools that'll complement the school organizations. And this I don't think we're proposing this will be the only school that'll be receiving partnerships. I could see other schools. We have, every year we put out a list of schools with excess space. So I guess the short answer is there still might be some boundary alignments, but we don't think it'll preclude the availability of this space in St. Julia, St. Joseph, Kateri, or St. Patrick.
And to add to what Tom had mentioned, yes, there was a boundary review study here a couple of years ago, and unfortunately due to COVID, it was suspended. It is our intention to restart that process, come next school year, and so that's the timing of that. And for those of you on the call who may have been part of some of the consultation sessions before we had to sort of halt some of the consultations a couple of years ago, you may recall that there were 3 different options presented at the time, 2 years ago. And with those options 2 years ago, two of the three options had suggested the same boundary expansion for St. Julia Billiart. One of the third option at the time did not suggest a realignment in terms of the boundary for St. Julia Billiart. Now, if we have to sort of restart that process again and sort of take a look at it again next school year. But at the time, 2 years ago, when we were looking at potentially expanding the boundary for St. Julia Billiart, the potential at the time was to expand the longer term enrollment of the school by approximately 60 students overall, for a longer term. And at this particular point, 60 students would, and that was at the time assuming those options were chosen to expand the boundaries. So those 60 students would have contributed to the overall population of St. Julia Billiart. Having said that, even accounting for the 60 students, there is still significant capacity at this school where we could have partnerships. And as well, in the future, should enrollment also increase here, some of the changes that we're proposing are can be temporary. So we're not proposing to put a brick wall in between, these classrooms or section it off, et cetera, where it could be more permanent. These are temporary measures such as, alarms and locks, such as changing of the doors, such as fencing, that can allow us, if the enrollment at St. Julia Billiart does increase to the point where we need the space back for the school, that we can vacate the school from this program, and the school community can have the spaces back within relative ease. So I think that's something that I thought was important to mention as well. Tanya, you did have your hand up. I apologize.
Sorry, Joachim. Yes, you addressed the permanency issue.
Thanks, Joachim. So I think we're done with the questions. If there's something that I haven't addressed, we can certainly look at that. But I think I've touched base on all the questions and responses in the chat.
Perhaps we can just give a couple more minutes just in case somebody is typing in a new question after you mention that, Laura, to see if there are any follow-up questions or comments or thoughts.
Okay, there are. I guess, a question is, there are many more Markham schools that have lower enrollment, and they're just looking, the questions are, why is it actually St. Julia? And they're comparing other schools.
Perhaps I can start. So as I mentioned a little bit earlier, we did look very objectively at a number of different criteria that we reported back to the board in terms of, trying to find ideal locations. Some of those criteria include being very close to transit, having that long-term capacity or that excess space in the school that's projected consistently. It's also looking at the existing floor plans of the school where certain areas can more easily be separated off than others without the need for significant capital dollars to invest to do that scenario. And in this case, we've checked the boxes in terms of what St. Julia Billiart has to offer. And I think it's a compliment too to the St. Julia Billiart community that that there are those positive attributes to this school and to this community and to this location that it's fairly ideal from a partnership standpoint. So hopefully that does address some of the questions there. That question there.
Thanks, Joachim. I'm just kind of making sure I touch base. This would not impact split grades in the actual school. Could this force to be more split grades? It would have nothing to do with the actual St. Julia enrollment. I have a question here, and please look carefully at my previous comment and address that. And I'm sorry that I might have missed that. if you could potentially repost your, because I don't know which one that was, if you could possibly repost that. And Joachim, the group, what is the age group the program is open to?
Tanya, do you want to go?
Sure. So the age range would be 18 plus. We have students that are in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. So we really don't have a specific age, but anyone, an adult over 18 is the age range.
Okay, and is this a done deal, or does the community have a say in this proposal?
Well, I'll just say I think we've already addressed that, but yes, this is not a done deal. I mean, staff wants to. We're out tonight to talk to you about the proposal, and we're interested in your feedback. As Joachim said earlier, if there's something that you think we've missed or something unique to St. Julia that we haven't considered, then we'd like to know, and we take that under advisement. And then staff will be preparing a report to provide to the Board of Trustees, and within that report, we'll have a recommendation. But ultimately, it's the Board of Trustees that'll make the decision.
Okay, I think we've addressed all the questions. And I just have to say, on a personal note, again, St. Julia is a very vibrant community. I hope we've addressed your questions. We'd like to, again, make it a sustainable community. And I think we've made, an informed decision and considered everything on a board level in regard to we want to keep that community alive, and we think that this community could actually be sustainable by housing this program. If you have any personal concerns or questions, certainly do reach out to me, again, as principal previous to the school or Principal Coles, and we can answer your questions on a more personable level. And I thank everybody here for coming together and trying to, again, have those conversations and courageous conversations. And yes, there are concerns. There are students, and we're concerned with student safety, all of us. And please do reach out.
Karen, if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide. So I'll just remind everybody, thank you, Laura, that you can provide feedback to us, and you can use your Google form, or as Laura mentioned, feel free to reach out if you have individual concerns as well. But we do want to hear some of your comments or questions, specifically if we haven't addressed something, or we haven't thought about something that might be unique to the community. Feel free to provide your comments through the Google link form. And as mentioned earlier in the presentation, that will be available for another week for you to provide comments, and then we will review everybody's comments and discuss them together as a group prior to including that as part of the feedback in our report back to the board with recommendations. Laura, I don't know if there were any other questions that might have come in the last minute. Oh, Trustee Alexander.
I just wanted to make it clear to the community that this is your opportunity to voice your concerns or make recommendations as you see fit, because you know your community much better than anyone else. And at the board, student safety is our #1 priority. We know that this is likely new to you in terms of what we're attempting to do, but please, your voices need to be heard, and you have an opportunity to do so via the Google form or any other means that you choose. So please um, take that time, talk to your neighbors. You guys can connect, and send us your feedback, because all of this goes to the board, and the decision will be made on the basis of the merits of whatever feedback that we get. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Trustee Alexander. Laura, did we receive any other last questions or anything like that?
Sorry, I was on mute. Let me just go. I think Trustee Alexander addressed when they be voting. No, I think we're good to go. And again, I don't know if Principal Coles is on the meet, but again, Principal Coles and myself will be available, and perhaps we could actually just, if we wanted to have even an impromptu school council meet and invite members of the community to address, questions or concerns, we could do that as well.
Vicky, I'd certainly be happy to set that up if that's something that the community would like.
Thanks, Principal Coles. And we'll definitely invite you, Trustee Alexander. So thank you, everybody. Thank you very much. Thanks for setting this up. And again, recognizing St. Julia being that vibrant community and everybody, looking out to the best interest of that school community and what we can do to make it a sustainable community in the Markham area. And we really appreciate all of your efforts and coming together tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
very
Good
much.
night.
Have a good night.